The fastest way to manifest a desire is to live in the end, as if you already have it. But when you think about it, do you often struggle to feel it and get inside the picture? But if I asked you to remember your favourite memory, I bet you could describe it in minute detail and use most of your senses, like your graduation, your favourite holiday, or your wedding. So why can't you think about your desire the same way as you do about a memory? Well, you see memories as real and solid, so you find it easy to immerse yourself in them. But the future doesn't seem as realistic as the past, as it just feels like wishful thinking. So with the I remember when technique, you can utilize how the mind trusts a memory. This method originated from a vision Neville Goddard experienced one night. In his vision, he found himself moved back in time inside a palatial New York mansion built at the turn of the century. He could see 3 generations, but the grandfather was invisible to the other 2 generations, even though he dominated the house. The son spoke to his children, saying, "Your grandfather had this system where he would stand on an empty lot and say, 'I remember when this was an empty lot.' Then he would paint a word picture of his desire for that lot so vividly that those who heard him could see it completely right in front of their eyes. This is the grandfather who made the fortune we are now enjoying." But they didn't know the grandfather's secret, as they only told it as a story. Neville woke from this dream, and as he remembered it so vividly, he wrote down the whole experience and returned to bed and went back to sleep to redream the entire dream with one exception. In the second dream, Neville was the grandfather and turned and spoke to the other 2 generations. He said, "I remember when this was an empty lot." Then he painted a word picture. As he described the building so vividly, the very stones moulded themselves into the form he envisaged. This time, when Neville awoke from his dream, he knew through his Bible teachings that this was an instruction to use his vision as a new technique. Let me show you how to use the I remember when technique. As I discussed in the intro, when we think about our desire, it's hard to imagine that it exists now rather than in the future. Also, habitually, we like to think about our problems, so this technique solves both. It's like having your cake and eating it. So with the I remember when technique, you'll be using the idea that you no longer have the problem because it is now in the past, and today you have your desire. To create the phrase, you would start with I remember when, followed by the problem. For example, if you were single, you would say, "I remember when I was single," as this would imply that you're no longer in this state, i.e., you are now in a relationship. Then if you want, you can add the phrase "and now," followed by the solution. This part of the phrase helps you get more specific on what the solution needs to be. So with the above example, the complete phrase would be, "I remember when I was single, and now I'm with the love of my life." The thing about this simple technique is that there are infinite ways you can use it. And the best one is that you can use it for multiple desires. For example, if you want to have money, be in a relationship and lose weight, you could say, "I remember when I was alone, broke and overweight." By itself, this implies that you no longer have these problems, but you could also say, "Now I am well off, slim, and have found the love of my life." Because this technique is so powerful, you need to be wary of how you word your phrases. When you say "I was," what words follow implies you are no longer in this state. When it is constructive, this works in your favour. Like "I remember when I was broke" is fine, as this implies that you are now rich. But if you say, "I remember when I was happy," this implies you are sad now. It creates more sadness in your life. If you want to go deeper, here are some more ways you can use this technique. Remove even more resistance. You can imagine that your desire has already happened in the past. Since you'll see the desire as a memory, rather than just a potential image, your mind will find it easier to believe it is true, so it manifests. Not only this, the desire could be a starting point for a second desire. For example, I remember when my boyfriend came back to me, and now I'm happily married. You probably believe that the past is unchangeable, but it isn't. What you think about in the now changes both the past and the future. So you can use the I remember when technique to change something that has happened that you don't want. For example, if you had a mortgage application rejected, you can change that by saying, I remember when my mortgage application was approved. This phrase implies that the rejection never happened. You could also add, and now I'm moving into my dream home. So here are a few points to remember. The I am remember when is a simple technique that can be used in so many ways. 1. For solving a single problem. 2. Solving multiple problems in one go. 3. Revising the past. And 4. Seeing your desire as a memory. You can say just the first half of the phrase, like I remember when, followed by the problem, or you can add and now, followed by the solution. Finally, think about whether the phrase is constructive or destructive. So, test the technique for yourself and see how quickly your desires come to you. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you again.